Hey, we're back. Time for another movie review.
Yes, this one we dove deep into our childhood on this one. We've been wanting to do this review for a while. We are going to be reviewing Masters of the Universe. A truly, truly terrible, terrible movie.
But it's a movie that you will never hear us, you will probably never really hear us say a bad thing about it.
No.
Just because this movie epitomized our childhood so much. This was one of the biggest things. This is one of the bigger movies that I remember from childhood.
Yes.
It's terrible.
He-Man was everything.
Yes.
When we were children.
He-Man was awesome. Everybody wanted to be He-Man.
Yes. I actually went as He-Man for Halloween one year. I think it was probably 85, maybe 86. I don't remember exactly. We were living in Virginia, so that was, I can't even think about how far back that was. Long, long time ago. But then in 1987, this movie came out, and our parents took us to the theater to see it in Blue Springs, Missouri, at the was it Blue Ridge Mall? I think it was called.
I was long 5.
Since.
I was 5 years old at the time. I can remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you remember that.
Well, it was amazing. I remember going, took an escalator down the down into the theater. It was underneath the mall, and it was awesome. So it's one of the first. I think it's probably like the second or third movie I can remember in my childhood actually seeing in the theater. So it was awesome.
I only vaguely remember going to the theater to see it. I don't remember going to the theater at all, but I remember seeing it on the screen. I remember some little things, like when Skeletor was on the hologram. I remember seeing that. I remember that part in the big screen because that was amazing.
Larger than life, especially for a 5-year-old.
Yes, yes.
For you, at least.
And it was it was the first major introduction to the most awesome person on the planet, Dolph Lundgren. I'm not going to apologize to Chuck Norris for saying that because Dolph Lundgren's a man.
Yeah, Chuck Norris wishes he could be Dolph Lundgren.
That's right, and Dolph Lundgren wishes he could be Liam Neeson. It's a vicious circle.
Yes, it is. And Liam Neeson wishes he could
be Lemmy.
Yeah, because Lemmy is God.
Lemmy's God.
So Dolph Lundgren, let's go over the cast real quick. Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, Courtney Cox in her very first movie role. She did about 5 TV episodes and a Bruce Springsteen movie music video before that.
That's right. She was. I forgot that she was in a Bruce Springsteen video.
Yes. James Tolkien of Back to the Future fame.
Strickland.
Strickland from Back to the Future, and the commander, I can't think of his name, from Top Gun.
Yep.
Yeah. That famous line, "You screw up just this much, you'll be flying a cargo plane full of rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong." Really set Tom Cruise in his place. Yeah. That's for sure.
Christina Pickles, who also played Courtney Cox's mother in Friends.
And you wonder if they were ever on set on Friends and like, hey, you remember in 1987 when we did that terrible movie Masters of the Universe? Good times. I can imagine they've been thinking good times.
Meg Foster, who has the most amazing eyes of anybody ever. If you've ever seen this movie, she actually does not wear contacts in Masters of the Universe. Those are her real eyes.
Wow.
Her eyes are a natural blue-gray with very, very small pupils, and she got typecast into a lot of sci-fi roles because of that. Billy Barty, who plays Wildor, this was probably one of the few roles for a small person in the 80s that wasn't filled by Warwick Davis.
Of course, at the time, Warwick Davis was in the middle of shooting Willow, so...
And Billy Barty was actually in Willow. He had a small role in it.
Yeah, he played the sorcerer, I believe.
Yep.
So, who else we got on here? Robert McNeil plays Kevin, Courtney Cox's boyfriend, who was in one of the Star Trek series, does a lot of directing now.
Yep. And John Cypher, who
plays Man-at-Arms. great. Yeah, we forgot the person that plays Tila. We didn't think to look that up, but overall, great cast.
The person who plays Tila is actually Scott Bakula's wife in real life, though.
There you
Lucky guy and lucky her.
Yeah.
This Scott Bakula is cool.
John Cypher, who you may remember from Major Dad. He played the general.
Who remembers Major Dad?
I don't know, but that's... I remember him specifically in this movie, and when I was in New York, I saw a Broadway production of Big, and he played Macmillan, the guy who owned the toy store.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And speaking of awesome, let's just talk about how awesome this movie is.
Yeah.
Where do you begin? It's the epitome of 80s cheese.
Mm-hmm.
The sets,
You know, everything's cheesy, but the set for Castle Grayskull is actually really pretty amazing.
yeah, it was awesome. It was
I
awesome.
mean, besides the fact of just how good it looked, it was the fact that they actually built it.
Yeah,
you know,
there was no
real.
CG. Yeah, they built a giant, huge
Mhm.
set. I mean, this was
And it was
probably took up an entire soundstage in itself.
it was as large as it looks in the movie. You
Yeah.
know, there was no camera trickery with that. They really built it to be that big.
Those holes that everybody falls into, and the where Skeletor falls into the end, it was obviously some camera work was done for the depth of it, but yeah, those were giant holes in the middle of the floor. So
Which, and I love the fact that they did it because it makes me think in my head that somewhere out there is the actual throne of Castle Grayskull. That it's
Yes.
real. And somebody probably has it hidden away somewhere, and I want to find it because I want it.
yeah, we can just replace our whole house with that. That'd be like the center.
Yes.
That'd be like, okay, you're God for the day.
Yes. Yes.
Little G God.
Yeah.
Won't strike us down. Music. Of course, it was the 80s, so music's got to be awesome. Bill Conte did the music, who also did the music in Karate Kid, and tons of other 80s stuff. So he was the music man in that place.
Yeah, he was the John Williams of the 80s.
Yes, he was. Overall, just I don't know how to review this a movie that's just so awesome in our childhood. Dolph Lundgren did an amazing job. Before that, I mean, pretty much everybody, up until the Expendables and some other really bad 80s action movies. You know, Ivan Drago from
He wasn't at the time
Rocky
of
IV.
At the time of this movie, he really wasn't known yet. You
Yeah.
know, this was his first. This is one of his first major forays into America. After this, he went on to do Red Scorpion, which is awful, by the way. I'm going to look directly into the camera to say this. It's awful. Don't watch it. Dolph Lundgren could barely even save that. I mean,
And that's
really.
saying a lot.
But then he went on to do Rocky IV, and everybody knew who he was after that.
Exactly.
You know, everybody knew who he was,
And now he's making a comeback with the Expendables.
which are great. Which, those I'll look directly in the camera and say, you should watch those. They're awesome. This was actually a very different, this is a little bit of a different take on the character because they based this movie based on the toy line alone. They didn't take into account any of the backstory that they had come up with for the cartoon. There was no mention of Prince Adam or Orko, although Orko is actually basically who Gwildor is supposed to be.
Yeah,
in this
he's a
movie.
replacement for it.
Yeah, it's just a replacement character. But this was He-Man as the warrior, not as the prince. Which was good because he looked gay as the prince.
Yeah.
But the only downfall to that was that there's no Battle Cat or Panther,
Yeah.
which
think
would have been
the-
awesome.
Besides the main characters, Man-at-Arms, Tila, He-Man, the Sorcerer, Skeletor, Evil Lyn, those are the main characters. Only other character they brought out from the toy line was Beastman.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Blade and Sarad and Krang, I think, were just people that they came up with for this movie.
I would think so, because I don't ever remember having that, and I had, I think, almost every He-Man figure there was when I was a kid. Oddly enough, I had like three Skeletors, one Prince Adam, but I never had He-Man. I never actually had He-Man, which is kind of sad.
The one,
But
one of the characters that I would have loved to have seen was Many Faces.
yeah, Manny Faces.
Yeah, that would have been cool. They could have done something really cool with this costume because they did a great job with the costumes
Oh yeah.
for this movie. Surprisingly, everything actually looks really good. You know, the props are great. Skeletor looks amazing in both forms,
Yeah.
both as Skeletor and as his god form.
Yeah.
You know,
Nitpicky thing I noticed is that his prosthetic makeup that he wore, he still had teeth behind
yeah,
the skull. But I guess there's nothing you can really do about
Yeah.
that because he's a he's a skull face, and take away the skin and the teeth are connected right to the bones. But that's just a nitpicky.
you can also you can see around his eyes. You can see where the mask is, where the holes for the mask are, and they have makeup behind it. And it's a decent job at making it look seamless and have that deep set. But you can see the darkness where the mask is not flush to the face.
So it's not. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, you have to deal. I mean, you're dealing with 1987. You're dealing before CG really got started, but it's all prosthetics. But it's really good otherwise. It's just nitpicky things.
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed is there's a lot of religious overtones, especially towards the end.
True.
The scene where He-Man has been taken as a slave to Skeletor before he turns into his god form. Blade starts whipping him with his laser whip, and it reminds me a lot of when Jesus was being whipped by the Cat of Nine Tails. And there's kind of my mother and I talked about this actually when we were younger, that there is some religious overtones to this. That Skeletor is the dark side, obviously, and He-Man is, I don't want to say is Jesus, but he represents the good. And so that's just one thing that
He's
I
like
really
a savior.
He is like a savior, and they actually mention that Skeletor actually mentions that if I kill him, he'll be a martyr and he'll be a saint.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so it's nice that they. I mean, it was just kind of out of nowhere, but it was kind of there was a little. I don't know, the little comparisons, which is good. Trying to think of anything else that we can talk about.
I would like to talk for a second about the greatness that is Frank Langella, because he's amazing. As one of the things that I really like about this movie is that in the comic, the cartoon, the character of Skeletor is really just awful. I mean, terribly cheesy. Like, I think even in the 80s, it was cringeworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, just awful dialogue, terribly cheesy. I mean, he was still a decent villain, but it was never anything where you really expected to see him best. He-Man. You always knew that He-Man was going to be able to beat this guy. Prince Adam could have beaten this guy. He didn't even need to turn into He-Man.
Yeah.
But in this movie, Frank Langella just takes this villain to a whole nother level. He makes him almost this Shakespearean villain that is cold and calculating and intelligent and has a way of speaking that is really just great. He has some of these great lines that he delivers. And you almost want to root for him. You almost want to see him win, just because he's done this so calmly. it's almost in some ways, and I just thought of this, kind of relating back to the religious overtones you said, it's almost kind of an Antichrist type thing. You know, he sneaks in and everybody is somewhat accepting of him. They know that he's bad, but because of the way he speaks, he gets people to follow him.
Mm-hmm.
And you almost kind of, you view him as not necessarily purely evil. But Frank Langella just has that ability as an actor to be able to elevate everything that he's in, and I don't know, he's great in this movie.
We were discussing it while we were kind of making our own riff tracks for it whenever we're watching a movie, but I mentioned that Skeletor is educated.
Mm-hmm.
You almost think that he would have gone to like Harvard or one of those other fancy Ivy League schools, Yale or something like that. He just, the way he speaks is like he's educated.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder if they do a backstory or if they do an origin story movie, what happened? Was he just a spawn of the devil, or that's how he gets his...
Or was he, you know, a good guy that was really smart at one time and just got pissed off? Because, you know, I mean, that happens.
And so I think they really need to move forward with the new He-Man movie, because while this version is great for nostalgia purposes, I would love to see someone take a serious turn at making a serious He-Man movie. It's obviously going to be cheesy, partially just because of the subject matter, but I would love to see a good origin story for this.
Yeah.
I discussed.
I think that there could be some good that could come out of a remake for this.
And you had mentioned that it needs to be set just entirely in Eternia.
Yes, that's what I would love to see personally. I like the idea of taking it. I think they did a good job of the idea of taking it to Earth, but I want to see Eternia. I don't want to see Earth. If I'm going to watch He-Man, I want to see Eternia. I want to see all of it.
Yeah.
Need to see more of Snake Mountain, because they don't show hardly any of it in this movie. There's a lot of Castle Grayskull, and they did a good job of that. But I want to see Snake Mountain.
Yeah.
I want to see Skeletor's lair. You know?
Yeah. And plus, they could just reboot the toy series. I mean, they put those ones out that were based on the comic, but the comic was not very good. That was released about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And they could also do some really kick-ass Lego sets as well.
Yes.
To have a Lego Castle Grayskull would be bad A.
Oh yes, it would, and make it huge. Don't do a small thing. Do I'm talking like
do a 5,000 piece.
I'm talking like Death Star size.
Yes.
Piece, like gigantic.
So probably in conclusion, unless there's anything else you can think of the awesomeness of this movie.
The only one thing about this movie that I've always said, and we always mention it every time we watch it. Why are there no people in this town?
Oh, exactly.
The town is completely empty throughout almost the entire movie, except for little scenes. Anytime that it's night, it's like everybody disappears from the town.
Yeah, how do you not see the giant battle hover thing going in there? I think there's Lubin, the cop, there's the music store owner,
Charlie.
There's the janitor, there's the 2 kids, and a couple of cops. That's it.
And a couple of employees at Robbie's.
Yeah.
At Robbie's Rib Shack.
That's it.
Yeah. It's like, really, what happens to all the people?
They were all on vacation.
Yes. We were on vacation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, in conclusion, Masters of the Universe, watch this movie. It's so cool, especially if you were a boy in the 80s. If you haven't seen this, shame on you.
Yes.
So.
And you know what? Just as a little side note, everybody, think of what your favorite movies from childhood were. Find them, pop them back in, watch them. You know,
relive the memories.
Relive your childhood a little bit. You know what? No matter how bad you think the movies were, and if they were from the 80s, and they probably were.
Yes.
You know what? They're still going to be good. They're still going to be good. Because that's just the way childhood nostalgia is.
Exactly.
Enjoy yourself.
Blessed be.
Yeah.